Hello, and welcome to another episode of Marketing, Management, and Money. I'm your host, Ryan Murray.
And I'm your host, Ryan Owens.
So today I want to talk about this concept of it's the lifetime value of a customer. And this really is kind of a marketing concept, but it's going to bleed into some ideas around money and the financials of the business. Because really what we're looking at is we're looking at how expensive it is to acquire a customer versus how expensive it is to keep a customer. And so I kind of want to jump in and just take it from the very fundamental of this that, we all have heard it's cheaper to keep a customer than it is to get a new customer. But let's break that down. Like, what exactly is going on? Why is it cheaper? Are just, existing customers, they're just cheap?
Right.
Like what exactly is going on that's making that happen?
Yeah, I feel like this is a really important topic to understand because you hear that, and there are a lot of maxims like that in marketing and sales and management, all those things that they all vary a little bit, but essentially I feel like a lot of times they come with that same kind of a connotation that's like, it's cheaper to keep customers rather than reacquire them or whatever.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But there's always that like 10% in the back of your head that's like, is it though? Is it really? You know what I mean? And so I think it's really important to, especially for this one, because it really does have so much impact on how smoothly and efficiently your business can run, right? It's like, I like to think about this in the way of when you first started out your business as an entrepreneur or whatever this venture is that you've taken on, when you very first started it out, was it just like people were like, oh yeah, here, take my money, pling, right from first day.
Right.
It wasn't. It was like all this work and effort and time and energy and fights with your spouse and you know what I mean? It
never happens.
That's too real.
Never happens. Is that what we mean by it's cheaper to have existing customers? Is it's like you don't fight as much?
Yeah, less emotional cost.
Clearly.
Anyway, dialing it back. Let's try this one more time. No, it's like you start out your small business, right? And you do all this work and everything that goes into it. And your first customer comes and you're like, woohoo, I got it. And you try again. And it's like, it didn't quite work. So you have to go back to the drawing board and try again. It's all this work to get that built up to where you have a solid customer base. And then once you get it rolling, it's like, hey, this is starting to work.
All we're talking about here is momentum.
Right.
It's like,
and it's the same thing with your customers.
Yeah. It's easier to keep the ball rolling than it is to get it started.
Yeah. So thank you for tuning into this week's episode. We have enjoyed this discussion on momentum. Just kidding.
So this is what I want to do. There are so many times where I'll hear, this thing like it's 7 times more expensive to, get a customer than it is to keep a customer. Or, your customer has to be exposed to your message 13.4 times.
I love that
before. And
there's some validity to it.
There's a lot of validity to the concept.
Bingo.
But the number, it varies so much from industry to industry. It depends on how you expose your customer. Like, are you whacking them upside the head, or are you just kind of subtly being like, hey, notice us?
Yeah. Are you like this new hot up and coming thing, or are you some random niche market that you really have to work for to sell your customers? It's just super different for a litany of different reasons.
And I think the biggest fallacy is when people, they get this mindset that there's like, okay, so if I share my message 7 times, people will buy.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Exactly.
Like there might be someone who buys the very first time. Some people, they're going to wait till the 5th time. Some people will never buy from you. Some people take 20 times. and 7 might be an average. It might be something you want to run with, but, however, the concept is valid, and that is that if you already have someone buying from you, they're going to come back more easily and more readily if they had a positive experience. Now, we recently did an episode on customer service, and we talked about how important it was that you understand what experience your customer wants. Not everyone wants a friendly smile. That's not, sometimes they need to have the expertise. Sometimes they need to have the knowledge. And so if you're providing a quality customer experience, then they're more likely to come back without you spending a lot of, ad dollars or, putting together a marketing campaign or something like that. They're already there. They're already buying. It's habitual. It's locked, ready to go.
And those people that have purchased from you once already have already shown, like, they've already indicated, hey, this person might be part of my love group, right? They've thrown up that, at least some sort of an indication, right? It's like if you're fishing and you feel like a little bit of a nibble, it's like, there's probably a fish down there, right? Mm-hmm. And then you wait for another one. And if there's another one, you yank it, you're right? And I'm no fishing expert. I assume that's how it goes. In real life, I suck at fishing.
I do too.
I'm like cursed. Anybody that comes with me can't catch fish. It's terrible. Anyway, but with these people that are literally, and I think I picked this phrase up from you, actually, Rye. These people that are voting for you and your business with their money, right? Like, they literally are doing that. And that's a sign, like, if you're voting for class president in your school, it's like, oh, that's probably a sign that you like that person.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of a thing with your business. And if there already is that connection and you reach out and foster that a little bit, it's so much easier to, well, you'll either identify right off the bat if they've, like you said, if they've had a good experience and they are part of your love group, or if they had some sort of a bad experience and you can fix it, or if they just are like, yeah, that was a mistake. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. You know what I mean?
Right.
It becomes very clear. And that's cheap. In terms of marketing dollars, that's not an expensive thing to do.
Right.
But if you're like, hey, we already had all these people buy, we're going to totally ignore them for the moment, and we're just strictly going to see if we can find somebody else out there to buy from us. Mm-hmm. Like, how are we going to do that? That becomes expensive.
Right.
Because again, there's a litany of different ways that could become complicated.
But so you've got to realize when you're out there, how consumable is your product or service?
Right.
If you are a realtor, like, people aren't buying houses every month. And a lot of times, people, like, if they're moving, they might move completely away from you. Like, you're always having to get new customers,
Right.
If you're relying upon really, repeat customers, that's pretty tough as a realtor. Now, I know there's realtors out there that are like, oh, it's the referral. Yeah, the referral, but that's not a repeat customer. That's a marketing technique to get new customers. Right. But what if you're super consumable? And I'm going to use the example of restaurants because food is very consumable. You eat it and you're done. And if you like the restaurant, you're going to come back every single day to consume more. There's an interesting phenomenon that I observed.
I feel like every day is extreme. I'm just going to stop you and throw that out there. Like, I feel like that's the old man that goes into the gas station for his coffee like every day, or the cafe for his coffee every day. I don't feel like that happens. Does that happen? Is that a thing?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Are you kidding me that you're asking if this is a thing?
I don't know.
Dude.
I don't do that.
People are habitual. And when it comes to food,
touche.
There are so many people, like, on their way into work, they not only stop at the same place, but they order the exact same thing.
I guess
that's their routine.
Where a regular comes in.
And at the coffee shop, fine. Like, there are so many people that are just grabbing their coffee every single day. And,
See, and that's like totally antithetical to my personality. This is why I don't relate to that.
That's weird. I mean, I'm sure you've got your habitual things. It might not be a breakfast routine.
No. Just kidding.
But
I always pick my nose at the same place on the drive to work.
oh, good.
That's the only thing I could think about.
Is that why one side's more swollen than the other? Getting back, so there's this really interesting phenomenon that happens.
This bulbous,
I know, it's all
nostril.
stretched out. It's got stretch marks on it.
Stretch marks on your nostril. I know you want to sorry. Okay.
So there's this interesting phenomenon. I'm trying this for the third time that I love to watch as a small business consultant working with all these businesses. Every time a restaurant would kick up, inevitably people were curious about the restaurant.
Right.
And most of the time, you're not afraid to give it at least one try. I mean, you might walk in and find the place filthy and think, okay, I'm never coming back here.
Yeah.
But, if it's got a decent ambiance, you're going to give it a try and you're going to be like, okay, hey, there's a new restaurant in town. I want to see if it's any good. And, depending on the experience that you have is going to depend on whether or not people are coming back. If you have a positive experience, you're going to make this place a regular. You're going to tell your friends about it. If you have a negative experience, then you're done and you're going to tell your friends about it.
Right.
And so it's really your marketing campaign becomes what is the experience that you're having. And so when you're talking about the lifetime value of a customer, how consumable your product or service is has a lot to do with how much you need to focus on the lifetime value of a customer. Because if you're a restaurant, I mean, that's your lifeblood. Repeat customers is your lifeblood. If you don't have repeat customers, you are done.
Yeah.
So depending on the level of consumption is really going to make all the difference.
And I feel like a huge part of that is understanding your customer, right? Like we've talked several times about having your best existing customer.
Right.
And if you understand that, hey, in this regard, my customer base should be more or is more habitual. So if I can become part of their routine, bingo, right? Mm-hmm. Because it is this consumable thing or whatever. But like you said, or you gave the example of the realtor, if this isn't something that's like a habit, then what are the characteristics of this customer that I can tap into to, maybe have them come back to me with, like you said, with referrals. I get that that's not like repeat customers, but, or if they like sell a house and start renting, or if they go from, hey, they're renting from me and now they like me so much that the properties that I manage, then they're going to buy from me as well. There are some ways, right, that you can make those. It's just a matter of looking at that best existing customer. Who is that for you, and tapping into that.
Now, here's where I'm going to recommend that our listeners start. So before I'm going to come up with a lifetime value strategy, I'm going to put a lifetime value. I'm going to put kind of a monetary value on that customer.
Oh, yeah.
Now, this is almost impossible to get correct.
Yeah.
Because you're looking at it. And, if you're doing some...
It's fortune telling for the future, right?
Seriously, yeah. It's like, oh, okay, well, this customer is going to be worth X amount of transactions. It's like, you don't know this. But there are ways that you can...
But wait. I'm feeling like there's some returns coming in here now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But there are ways that you can really start to hone in on this.
Yeah.
And you can get close enough. Like, you don't have to be exact. This isn't
right.
This is not an exact science type calculation. This is something where you're trying to put a value to the customer.
Right.
So if I were that restaurant, and I say, all right, at my restaurant, the average plate is $25, right? And so I look at it and I say, it's $25. Most people are not, like, this isn't your breakfast routine. Breakfast routine is, I'm going to spend $8, right? But at $25, it's like, okay, I'm probably going to come here, couple times a month, maybe once a month, once a quarter, something like that.
Sure.
And so I'm looking at it and I'm saying, all right, for every regular customer, if they're coming, once a month, that's worth $300 to me in revenue. If they bring someone with them, that's worth $600 to me in revenue. And so I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, so these two people coming out to dinner once a month in my restaurant, that's worth annual $600.
Yeah.
How much would it cost me to market to these two people to get them to come? If I had to put a radio ad out there, or if I'm going to put an online coupon out there, or if I'm going to, run some sort of a promo through the local school district or whatever I'm going to try and do to get these people to come, what does that cost me?
Right.
And I look at it and I say, okay, at $600, if I'm going to, give them one free meal, that's $50 off. Okay, so $50 worth of, food or service or whatever, is that cheaper than what it would cost me to market? And if it is, we do that, and we want them to keep coming back and bringing their friends and different things like that. And so it's something that you can look at. And will are they going to come the third Thursday of every single month? No. But can you estimate it? Can you figure out, okay, how often are people coming? And if you're in business, I know I'm on a little bit of a rant here for a second.
That's all good. It's a good rant.
If you're in business, then, the servers, they're going to start noticing the regulars. And just tell them, say, hey, I want you to do something for me. I want you to pick a handful of regulars and literally just mark on this calendar right here when they come in. Yeah. Let's start tracking this and let's get a rough idea of how often are these people coming in. And then we can make some estimates and we can figure things out and, and go from there.
Yeah, I think that's a great approach, especially for the food industry, right?
Sure.
So, but for the rest of our listeners that aren't in the food industry, the one or two of them, right? No, seriously.
I think when did this become the Food Network?
Right. But I think we should take a look at some other examples, right? I think another popular avenue that entrepreneurs, especially in today's day and age, are pursuing is more of the e-commerce side of things, right? And so how would you, I feel like a lot of the questions are going to be like, how do I do this as an e-commerce? I don't see my customers coming into my store or whatever, but as long as you're tracking your orders and things, keep a list of the emails that come through. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I really like, and I'm going to kind of bring it back here because there were a couple steps that we pointed out, and these are the same steps regardless of what market you're in.
Yeah.
Step one is understanding your customer.
Yeah.
Like if you don't understand your customer, the chances of them coming back are really slim because you haven't done anything that they appreciate because you don't know what they appreciate, So step one is you've got to understand that customer.
And for me, that's what it really comes back to, right? Like having that customer profile, understanding the attributes of your love group.
Yeah.
Right.
Then step two is understanding how consumable your products or services are. If they're highly consumable, then you have to focus on getting the return customer. If they're not super consumable, then, you're more into like a referral base type business. And so, once you have that, then it's putting together strategies and, ideas and techniques of how you can, figure out the value, the lifetime value of this customer, doing some estimated calculations, and then, tracking it, testing your theories, seeing if, okay, I believe that, return customers are worth so much. Now I'm going to try and validate that. I'm going to pick a couple return customers and I'm going to track their sales for the next, year. And yes, it might take a long time.
Yeah.
But
welcome to small business.
Yeah. What are you doing anyway?
Yeah. Are you done after 8 months?
Yeah. The year's going to come and go whether you do anything about it.
Yeah. Well, and there are two more things that I want to touch on before we kind of tie this thing all together. Number one, say you get a year down the road and you understand, okay, my repeat customers are worth $800 or whatever, right? if you have to go out and market to them to get them to be return customers and it costs you $1,200, you're probably doing something wrong.
Right.
And you need to go back and look
you're
at
upside down.
Right. But that leads me to the other thing that I think is actually really cool is, say you go down that road, right? And you're like, oh, I think this is my customer, and this customer cost me about $800. And I marketed to him, but it cost me $1,200 to get him to come back. Well, it's like, okay, well, revisit your assumptions about the attributes of your love group or those, your ideal customer, right? Mm-hmm. And target a different, take a different approach and say, so I was thinking that they were this way or this type of a person, but maybe they're this type of a person, which is a little bit of a tweak, right?
Right.
And then you test that theory. And holy crap, that only cost me $100 to get that $800 return.
Yeah.
And that's where the fun of marketing, for me, that's where the thrill of it comes in.
Yeah. That test and, it becomes your laboratory. It's like, oh, I wonder what this is. Oh boy, that didn't work. Okay, let's try this. But, so
you're going to singe some nose hairs along the way for sure.
You made a comment that sparked a thought that I think is imperative that we cover. And I know that we're going to wrap up here in just a minute, but the thought is of being upside down, where you're like, oh, what if it costs more to acquire than what you're getting? Now, the true gem of lifetime value of a customer is understanding that you don't have to make your investment back today. And
correct.
That is something, I mean, we've kind of talked about this, but I want to just call it out directly and say a lot of times I've seen where businesses, they're afraid to do loss leaders.
Oh, yeah.
And, okay, so a loss leader, for those of you who aren't familiar, is you are selling something at an intentional loss. You're losing money on the sale with the idea that it gets someone in your store, that it gets someone to come back for more, that,
Yeah.
And so.
And it doesn't, sorry to interrupt, but I want to just clarify. It doesn't, it's called a loss leader, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a loss, right?
Like, it doesn't have to, no.
You can just drop your margins so low that you're making a penny or what,
Yeah, you're breaking even.
Right. Or you're making $10 less than you'd like to, but you're still making a little bit. It just is a different, you're giving up more of what you would gain in revenue. Sorry.
And no, beautiful clarification, because when I look at loss leaders, the way that I like to look at them is the difference between, that margin that I would have been making and the loss that I'm willing to take. And whether that be a true loss or whether that just be a relative loss, like I'm not making as much as I normally would.
Right.
The difference to me, that's a marketing expense.
Totally. It's 100%.
It's not a cost of the product. You're not looking at it and saying, "Oh, well, our cost structure, we're losing our cost structure." I'm like, no, you're shifting that for a marketing expense, and you're going to drive the accountant crazy because they're going to look at that and they're going to be like, "No, this is cost. This is cost." And by true definition, what you did is, you lowered your margins, and you don't have as favorable of a cost structure going on relative to the price. But if you look at that as what's the alternative that I would have spent in marketing dollars, because marketing is expensive. We've said that several times. Marketing is expensive. And so it's a trade. It's a trade that you're willing to make and you're willing to take calculated. Don't just discount something because you're like, oh, yeah, we got to discount this.
I wonder what this will do.
Yeah, it's like this is a very calculated, strategic approach to marketing. This isn't willy-nilly.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that oftentimes you see small businesses fail for that reason, right? Mm-hmm. They just start throwing stuff at the wall, especially if things, for whatever reason, whether it's economic downturn or whatever, don't go as planned or don't go their way. They take a hit of some kind and they panic, right?
Yeah.
And they start throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. There are 100 billion thousand ways that you can get something wrong, right? And it's so easy to pair off the vast majority of those just by doing a little bit of research or thought or pondering on who your customers are, or what your approach is, what your market is, all these different things.
Right.
And it becomes so much less of that, just throwing something at the wall and seeing if it sticks.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that we've definitely given our listeners an earful on what to do and what not to do in terms of lifetime value of their customers.
But just know that it exists.
Yeah.
Come up with a rate. Even if that rate is not completely accurate, it at least puts that concept in your mind.
And have some patience. This is a long game.
It is. That's why it's called lifetime.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to take you a while to dial those things in and get that machine running correctly. But when you do, oh baby, it's magical.
It is.
And with that, I hope you guys find that gem. I hope you can refine your stuff down to that point where it's just running like a beautiful, well-oiled machine. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.
Take care.